Hello, everyone. Stephen Greene here, Dr. Steven Greene, the success doctor from Make the Grade. And this is the fourth in a series of presentations I'm doing. And these were born from the thinking. I'm trying to get my technical setup here. As everyone is probably well aware, we've had a disruption in our lifestyles, and it's impacted people on many, many levels. My focus is the education level and the fact that students are basically stuck at home now, having to learn either individually or based on some sort of directive from the schools that may be coming soon or maybe has been there. So what I did was I was getting a lot of questions, questions from parents, questions from other educators, questions from students. And what do we do? How do we do this? I don't know how to manage it. And I decided to put these series of presentations together, and I'm happy to say I think it's helping people. So let's just get right to it. This is about a 20-minute, 25-minute presentation. There is a point with questions. Just some quick disclaimers. This is live. It's probably going to be re-released in its live form. If you are on the webinar or the presentation, you're not comfortable with that, or being, not that there's any confidentiality disclosed or anything, but just as a warning. And number two, everything I'm saying here is basically my own opinion, but I do believe it is based on factual information, current factual information. It's not sanctioned by a school or a government or anyone like that. There's going to be some questions at the end, provided that we have time, and there are a lot of questions. You can submit them through the chat or comments. I'm going to try to kind of follow along with that on my phone. So if you see me going back and forth a little bit, I apologize. And lastly, you can email them to me if you want. Same thing. So structure in the chaos. This has been a chaotic time. It's a provocative title. I understand that. But I think it's appropriate. There's just so much upheaval, work level, family level, school level, lifestyle level, economic level, everything. Everybody's in a kind of a tizzy here. And how do we create a home environment that can enable our children, regardless of their age and their grade level, to learn effectively? So again, this is live. This is geared for parents with children on home study due to the mandated, and I think correctly mandated, social distancing. This is almost old news now, but things were changing so quickly. Originally, schools in Pennsylvania, where I am, were going to be closed for 2 weeks. That was recently extended to 4 weeks. It probably is going to go longer than that. The AP exam, a huge benchmark for a lot of high school students, particularly juniors and seniors, delayed, still trying to figure that out. Here's the goals. Address the 6 most commonly asked questions I was getting, give you some suggestions that you can do right away to put into place, and give you some ways to get ongoing support. My name's Steve Greene. My company is called Make the Grade. I am a tutor, private tutor, consultant, educator. I've been tutoring 24 years. Seems like a really long time, went very quickly. Before that, I was a classroom teacher and instructor. I've written a book called Maximum Education, which proud to say was a best-selling book in the education category. I host the Maximum Education Make the Grade podcast, and I'm also the facilitator and curator of Make the Grade Success Community. So a lot of Make the Grade going on. Make the Grade is all about really one or two things: helping students to maximize their education by having a plan, by meeting them at their level, and helping them to have success. So again, schools are closing, mandated to be closed. They may be for a while. They're converting shortly, imminently, to online instruction. How's that going to work? What's going to happen? How do parents deal with this? And so for efficiency, for speed, to try to get this out there as quickly as I could, I thought this presentation was the best way to do it. So here's the most commonly asked questions I've had. Number one, what are the best practices for virtual learning? What is asynchronous versus synchronous learning? How do you create an effective learning environment at home? To co-teach or not to co-teach? What are the best uses of online resources? How do you get short and long-term support? And there have been other questions for sure, but these are the most commonly asked ones. So let's talk about virtual learning and some of the best practices I believe. I think the key, first of all, is to meet it where it is. Virtual learning is what it is. This is not having a teacher in the front of the room or the side of the room or mingling around the room, basically leading and directing the education. Virtual learning here is going to, by definition, put a lot more responsibility on the student and by extension, the family. So I think the first thing you got to establish, when I say you, I'm talking to parents, is structure. You got to establish a structure. You got to have a plan. You got to have short-term plans. You got to have long-term plans. You can base on them on a curriculum. You may have to get creative with some of the rest of them, but I think you have to have a plan, and you have to try to make it interesting for your kids. The biggest complaint I've gotten from parents, probably by far, is my kids don't want to do anything. They just want to sit at home and play games, and they're thinking of this as like almost like a summer vacation. So here's my direct suggestions. Number one, create structure. Create a plan where you have short and long-term goals and projects, just like school. In school, student comes home pretty much regardless of grade level, and they've got stuff that's due the next day. They got math homework and science homework, and I'm going to call that short term. Then they got things that are longer term. They got a quiz next week. They got a project next week. They got a quarter test. They got a midterm. You want to kind of create both of them if you can. Try to do things with multiple topics. And I've talked about, and I did a podcast episode about this. I was so, it really came out great. The so-called baseball project. This is a student I started working with. I've been working with for a long time. But when this all first broke, the parents were very concerned. He's not all he's going to do is play video games all day. And frankly, he may have. So we got together and I said, look, we're going to work on some stuff. He didn't want to do it, very resistant. And this is a kid I work with. And I said, look, tell me something you're interested in. What do you want to learn? So I like baseball. It's the only thing he liked. Great. Likes baseball. Awesome. We're going to do a multi-curriculum, inclusive sort of project on baseball. And I still have my notes from it from when I met with him and online, virtually, by the way. So here's what we did. I said, let's talk about baseball. Let's talk about the history of baseball. Let's talk about the geography. Where is baseball played? Where did it come from? Let's talk about some science. Okay? There's physics in baseball. There's math in baseball. Let's talk about some foreign language because there's a lot of Spanish speaking and Japanese and whatever language speakers in the baseball world. And we got English involved because we're going to write about this. So what he did, in short, was put together a really very good PowerPoint presentation that included all these things. Had movies in it, had pictures in it, had descriptions in it. Now, this was an eighth grader. This was not a second grader. This was not a senior in high school. But the point was, it was something that was engaging, something he liked. It took about 2 days, 3 days, a couple hours here and there. And it worked out great. And now we did another one. We just did a second one on some players that he likes. So the key is, as a parent, make it fun, make it interesting, give your children input. And with older children, especially, I would give them more independence. Let them make the decision as long as they're appropriate. Use technology when it's appropriate. What I've been saying all week is I would use technology at the same level as it's being used in the school. If the kids have Chromebooks and they're coming home and they're working out of the Chromebooks every day, I would keep doing that. But don't ignore traditional things like picking up a book and reading it. Still works. And I think you want to decide how linked to the school curriculum you want to be. No matter where school broke off, there was lessons the day before, week before, a couple of weeks before, and you ought to be able to go back and look at that. Look in the notebooks, look where the notes are, look at the Schoology, look at the Blackboard, look at the online stuff, and see where the child was and pick up from there. So I think you have to decide, do you want to try to stick to that curriculum at least as much as you can, or do you want to kind of explore and do something a little more free form? And I think they're all good. The point is, bottom line, structure. Number two is asynchronous versus synchronous learning. Well, what we're doing right now is essentially asynchronous unless you are listening to it live. So asynchronous is very simple. Asynchronous comes from Latin or Greek or both, out of time, not in time. So it would be the situation where a lecturer, a teacher would record something or create work, and then the student would do it at a different point in time. So I am making this presentation. Perhaps you are viewing this Friday or Saturday or Monday or in a month, whatever. Nothing good or bad. This is not judgmental, just definitional. So synchronous would be at the same time. This would be people listening, watching, interacting with this presentation in the moment. So when you hear, well, my school's going to asynchronous learning, or we've got an asynchronous project, That's all it really means. Again, a commonly asked question. Number 3, how to create an effective learning environment at home. This was number 1, question 3, but most asked. And I touched on this before because these all intertwine and commingle. Number 1, create a physical structure. This is no different than you would have should have had anyway. Place to be doing homework or any kind of work is not in the middle of the kitchen while you're cleaning up dinner, television's on, dogs running around barking. Get a good, quiet workspace where you can concentrate. If you have more than one child, I guess it might be their rooms, but that's number 1. Number 2, time-based, temporal structure. I would treat this like usual homework time. Average student has an hour, 45 minutes, 2 hours, whatever of homework. I would block that off. So you say, listen, from 3 to 5, this is homework time. This is school-like time. I would treat it like the normal homework routine, just like with the technology. Thinking of technology, same thing. I recommend similar ratio or application of technology as is being used historically in the school or in the child's experience. They're used to using it fine, but use it for the right reasons. Now, as a parent, record keeping and accountability, this is a biggie. You're essentially overseeing this. You need to make sure this is going to happen. It's easy for them to say, yeah, I did my homework. Well, I've had kids come over and yeah, I got 20 math problems and all I see is 1 to 20 and then one number for each answer. There's a difference between quality, complete work and cursory sort of nominally done work. We're looking for quality, right? Quality on time. And that's where the record keeping and the accountability come together. I've been telling some stories this week of some families that have gotten big construction paper or whatever and made almost like a job chart where they got the kids' names on the columns and the jobs across the top. But it's like, little Joanna, English, math, science, reading, LA, whatever. And then as they do the work, they check it off each day. And the last piece is independence versus dependence. And this is kind of a function of a child's age. The older the child is, the more independent they should be able to work, especially a junior or senior. My senior is going to be going to college soon. So we are looking to create independence. This is a good chance to give kids the opportunity to do that. Hey, you're in 6th grade. You want to be independent? Show me you can do the work on your own without me having to look at this. In a lot of cases, the parents are home trying to work. A lot of people working at home, they're in their home office or wherever they need to be, and they got to count on the kids to be able to do this on their own. So the key is, as a parent, you're in charge. You're still the parent. You need to set the tone, create an environment that works physically, time-wise, and keep track of it. To co-teach or not to co-teach, that is the question. This, I think, is really not that big a deal, honestly. Co-teaching is not a new idea. It's just the idea of more than one instructor or teacher sharing, planning, and instructing, and in some cases, testing of students. And it can take a lot of forms. Probably the most common is just non-singular classroom, where you might have the students stay in the same room, but then teachers rotate through like a team teaching. So in this case, who is the co-teacher potentially now is the parent. So what's the role of the parent? I think I covered a lot of this in number 3, which is the parent needs to establish the structure. I don't think so much that the parent needs to establish the curriculum, but I think they need to establish the structure for what's happening here, when it's happening, where it's happening, who's doing it, that sort of thing. I think the role of the school at this point, and this is an evolving, changing thing, is to provide the work or historically what can be done. There's a framework here. Everybody's studying math, but they're not going to be doing the same thing. I'll go back to the short and long-term expectations. I think you need to say, listen, here it's Wednesday. This is what's due Thursday. It's Thursday. Here's what I need done by Friday. Here's things we're going to be looking for longer term. And a lot of these things, because right now, a lot of people are still figuring this out. But once the schools do go to asynchronous teaching, this becomes more and more important. So in my opinion, I don't think the parent's role is to suddenly become a teacher. Believe me, it's not an easy job. Every teacher understands that, and I was one, but it's not an easy job to be a parent either. So I think the role is to, as a guide, create structure, let your children learn, but make sure that there's an environment for them to do that and make sure they're doing it efficiently. Online resources. This could easily and may become its own presentation. But what I'm going to leave it to today is that there's a ton of options out there, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, probably per topic. Even just in science, there's tons of them. I spent about 30 minutes today just looking at different websites because I'm trying to put together resource pages. Just the fact that almost everybody has availability to the internet on your phone or on your computer right away gives you access to information. So I think what you need to do is define what's useful to you based on what you're trying to learn. I would just be careful of the quality. Consider the source. But I think right now the internet's probably the way to go. There's a lot of websites. You got all the videos on YouTube and Vimeo, and you've got the Khan Academy sort of things, and you've got Wikipedia, and you've got dedicated sites. So there's tons of stuff. The self-created ones, the peer review ones like Quizlet, are also really, really good. So I don't think there's any shortage of online resources. I think the key is making it grade level appropriate, age level appropriate, and trying to use it within the context of what you're trying to learn. It's easy to get lost in the online stuff because it becomes a rabbit hole. You're just digging deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and spending a ton of time trying to sort through stuff that you may or may not need. When I say you, I'm really talking more with the students here. So what I'm going to kind of summarize this here is, number one, have your topic drive the resources you need. You don't need, I think at this point, to have the internet create curriculum for you. I would look at it more as a resource and a research tool, unless you're looking to actually learn from it. So if the question is, how do you balance a chemical equation, then you're specifically looking for, maybe you go to YouTube and how do you balance a chemical equation? You see some videos that come up and you try to find one that's appropriate for you. I think this goes back to, what are you going to learn? Are you going to base it on the courses that your child's taking in school or the grade level that they're taking? Are you going to let children say, hey, look, what do you want to learn today? Kind of like the baseball project. Or do you want it just to be random? I have a family I'm working with every day. They just, I don't know exactly how they do it, but they basically just pick a random topic. The other day they were learning about the Grand Canyon, and they did research and they assigned children different tasks. Pretty cool, creative thing. Today they were talking about space travel. So in the morning they come up with a topic, they give the kids time to research it, and they kind of do a report. So kudos to them. Creative, fun idea. The last thing I'm going to say is there's a lot of online resources that are free, just like most of the internet is, I guess, essentially free. But there's a lot you got to pay for, and they don't always tell you that right away. So be a little bit careful. To a degree, you're going to get what you pay for. The paid ones are probably better and more reliable, but especially at this point in time, short term, I'm not sure that you need to go into anything that's paid unless you're going to buy a curriculum like a homeschool or an alternative school might do. And I don't think we're at that point yet, especially with the public schools and the private schools coming back soon, hopefully. Uh, how do you get short and long-term support? Question number 6, which was the second most asked question. I don't know why I didn't put it number 1 or 2. I was saving it for the end. Anyway, number 1, short term. And this is self-controlled. Set day-to-day goals. You're the boss, parents. This is when you got to, create that. We're going to do this today. I need this done by 5 o'clock. Make some assessments. Go over your kids' work. Get involved. I'm not saying people don't, but this is really a good time. Most people, I think at this point, at least the last week, maybe the next couple weeks, have more time, be at home, be with their children. Take advantage of it. Don't make this a big argument. Make it a cooperative effort, but you also have to establish what your expectations are. I want to see you write, I want you to see you read a chapter in the book, and I want you to write a paragraph about it. Great. But then check it. If you don't check it, if you don't assess it, the kid doesn't see value. They don't really care. And create a feedback loop. And what I mean by that is give the child positive feedback. Hey, this is great. I think you could have done this a little bit better. Be honest with them, just like a teacher would. Long term, and this is really what my life's work has been, but there's one-on-one support. If anybody needs help, anybody needs questions, please reach out to me. I imagine the schools are going to provide some kind of support, whether it's curriculum-based or office hours sort of thing. I'm not really sure, but that's another place. Social media based. And this is kind of like online resources. Social media is a bottomless pit. There's any number of gazillion things on the social media, Facebook world, groups you can join, and support groups, and local groups, and regional groups, and national groups. I would try to find a few that are appropriate for what you're trying to do. I have my own Make the Grade community. It's all about helping students and parents succeed and achieve and take action. I welcome people to join that community. I think the same thing. You got to be picky and choosy about what's going to help you and what's going to help your children. But the point is, look for support before you need it instead of kind of, getting yourself in a hole and then not knowing what to do. So let's see if there's any questions. My goal is to keep this about 25 minutes. We're at 21 right now. So I got two questions. Let me go through them very quickly. Number one, how do we reach you? Well, I'm going to show you that in a second. Social media, if you're watching us on Facebook or you're seeing it some other way, I would just direct message me there. I'm going to actually here, since I'm talking about it, there's my email. If you want to reach out that way, that's great. The second question was, my children just don't want to cooperate. What do I do? Well, what would you do if you were going to go on vacation and kids didn't want to go? Leave them home? I don't mean that in a pejorative or sarcastic way. I mean, this is a situation where somebody's got to take charge. I think you got to meet them where they are and maybe just give them feedback. Listen, what do you want to do? Nothing. That's probably what my kids would say. I won't do anything. That's not an option. You need to do an hour's worth of work today. You got 5 subjects, 3 subjects, how you want to split it up. Try to make them participants in the process, but never forget who's the boss. That's my advice. Believe me, I don't want to sit here and tell anybody how to parent. I thought I did the best I could, hopefully, but I don't want to tell other people how to be parents. What I'm trying to do is give advice on how to be sort of educators / parents. But I can tell you, without structure, it's not going to work very well medium term for sure. You might get one day, then it's going to fall apart. So we are in good shape. One more question, which is, what's going to happen next? Well, at least in my case, I plan to keep these going because I believe they're helping people. When I say these, I mean these sort of presentations. What I'm thinking about doing, because this is some feedback I've gotten, um, is doing kind of like an open live office hours and do that a couple times a week where people could log on and just ask questions or maybe even have work that they need help with. So I would hope that people might see value here, keep in touch, follow what I'm doing, and reach out. I'll try without being obnoxiously in people's faces to get the word out about what I'm doing. And I appreciate, let me thank some people. A lot of people have shared the publicity of these presentations. And I really want to thank everyone. Not because I'm trying to, do anything in terms of fame at all. This is because I really believe that the more people that get this sort of information, the more people it's going to help. This is about helping people. That's where we are at right now as a society and as communities. So here's the follow-up. If you have any questions, please email me. I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can. I'm planning to do more of these presentations. I think it's going to come down to a couple a week, probably one in the morning, one in the afternoon, maybe one at night sort of thing. I would suggest you find kind of a home, find a group, find a support group that you like. I would welcome everybody into the Make the Grade Success community. I think you'd really get value there. And again, the daily support meetups like this, I'm going to see what that's going to look like and how I can make that happen. So I want to thank everybody that came on live here on the Zoom, live on Facebook. Greatly appreciated. Thank you very much. I hope everybody stays safe. Please listen to what's going on out there. I just taking a walk today and see people. Some people just aren't taking this that seriously. Please do. It's not a great thing that's going on right now, but yeah, stick together and make it work. So thank you again, everyone. And Dr. Steven Greene signing off. Let me know what you have. Let me know what you're thinking. So long.